Hey, welcome everybody. This is the Sci-fi AI Show. In a world where your skin can talk to machines, where a wave of your hand dims the lights or unlocks your car or launches a drone swarm, mm, where no screens, no buttons, and no wires stand between you and the systems around you. This isn't science fiction, this is science fact. Welcome to the age of e-skin, a second skin, ultra thin, invisible, magnetic that turns your body into the interface. No implants, no hardware, just motion, intention, and control. Control over your home, your world, your reality. But here's a question we haven't answered yet. When your body is the remote, who controls the signal? The interface is invisible, the power is magnetic, and the consequences unknown. This is our focus for today, Friday, April 18th. You're watching the Sci-fi AI Show, and I'm here with Andy and Jyunmi, and I am Beth. Jyunmi, this came out of a story that you recapped for the Daily AI Show on our news episode. Will you give us a gist of what this e-skin is all about?
Sure. So the concept of e-skin or having that, skin tight layer to manipulate different objects or control interfaces and things like that, that's been around for a while. It's been in slow development. What the story I covered was that this research group have seemed to unlock uh, a method of creating a um, you know, micrometer thin skin layer, right? And so what that does is it's super flexible, it's breathable. So when you put the patch on there, or however they implement it, it allows air and moisture to go through, so your skin still breathes. It isn't like wearing a scuba diver suit or anything like that, right? And so this has been a huge advancement in the space. Now, primarily, the main research path has been for robots, so that they can interact with the world and using the various sensors on this e-skin to interact, so that they'll have a touch sensor and they can read the weather around them and all these kinds of things, so that they know to grab things at a certain pressure, create situations so where they're not, things are not becoming wet or slippery, or those kinds of things, and adapt to their situation. Also, it helps them with knowing where they are and where other things are around them. And that's the other key part of the technology. It's all based off of magnetic fields, right? So everyone's got a low magnetic field that's just generated naturally, and uh, manipulations of that field can give you input and output of levels of control and things like that. So ideally, what this eSkin would do is it would provide a number of sensors and interactive ability with, or as a control unit for other things. So you may have seen these in common, or a lot as a common trope in a lot of different sci-fi. One that really comes to mind, that maybe a lot of people have seen, is Minority Report, where you're like moving things across a display or a holographic display, and you're just moving your hands in the air and things like that. That's all because of the motion of your hand and the manipulation of magnetic fields.
Mhm.
So you can just do hand motions and whatever the resulting effect is, whether that be in an AR or VR environment, and variations upon that. So that's the main idea, that it's an interface control system.
Mhm.
As they develop, they'll get more sensor, more feedback, more data, more information, and you'll be able to control more and more things. One aspect of this is that brain computer interface path of development that we've seen with, from Elon Musk's company where they put in the chip. Uh,
Amazing.
we've recently talked about another university. Their researchers were able to access a different speech centers of the brain for those who don't have normal access, whether that be through damage or disease and things like that. And they're able to help communication along those lines. But the e-skin specifically is part of that whole sphere of interface to allow you to manipulate whatever tools that you have access to.
Interesting. So, I know that in the like, it was a really big deal when Nintendo came out with, an interface that, like, a bunch of years ago, you held in your hand, and therefore it could understand where you were in space, right? Like, so you could turn and do a variety of things.
I thought you were
Is
going to mention the Power Glove,
well,
but
we can go with the power glove too. And Andy, I'm curious if this is something that has been a part of your interface when you were working with the Dave and Buster's and the games and that kind of stuff. Was the control or the way that the individual was engaging with the system a part of that? And you are muted, so yeah.
Yes, the answer is yes. The virtuality system that we used that came from W Industries in England uh, used what is called a Polhemus tracker. And the Polhemus device is a magnetic sensor. And then the controller that you would hold in your hand and the position of your head, this was not tracked by some inertial, tracking mechanism for your head position. It was all magnetic sensing from this ring that you stood inside, and that was emanating this magnetic field. And then they just simply had small, electrically connected magnets in there to have the sensible metal that's in the hand controller and in your head mounted display to very accurately map the movements of your head and hand. So yeah, it was all magnetic. And I think the main distinction of this new approach to using a very, very thin and permeable layer that would not be, bulky or require a lot of power, is that they've shrunk down the magnetic sensors to the point where they're actually detecting the presence or the real proximity and contact with objects based on the change in the magnetic fields that are sensed by this sensor. Now, I've never heard about this thing before, but the sci-fi aspect of it is how does this as a platform then proceed to the point where you have an interface directly to the skin sensors, right? Like our real sensors that can, like a neural implant in effect, but now it's going to have contact with the skin surface, and it could, somehow translate the magnetic sensing that it has of the field around you. How could it translate that into actual perceptible inputs to you? Because what we're talking about so far is just like the virtual reality application. I can do things that reflect movements of my body, but I'm not changing my internal sensing as a result of this skin. And the science fiction part that makes all of this very interesting is what are the progressions of this idea of a thin, wearable exophasia on the body that could actually amplify my senses in a dramatic way without having to deliver it through one of the other senses other than the contact with my skin and my nervous system through that interface.
Mm-hmm.
well, now that we're talking about the sci-fi applications, okay, so to go along your thinking process, Andy, what we've seen in science fiction is various levels, right? There are things talked about in, like, let's say Ready Player One, where they talk about a haptic suit, right? Haptics is essentially is just that response technology. And right now you can see them in like the dual shock controllers for gaming systems, but haptics can go beyond that. So if you for like Ready Player One, you could get an expensive suit that you could wear, and through that interface and your on your body, you can get the sensations that you would get from that VR environment from Ready Player One, and so you could have a quicker response to things, because that was one of the things that you wanted to be as a gamer, is to have more in-depth, more real response from the real world into the VR world. And so that level or that type of technology is an application. Now, if we go beyond that and we're going into like deep cyberpunk, type of technologies, it's it is a almost extra sensory layer, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of for your cyberware, whether that be limb replacement or just biological replacements, you can enhance your capabilities by wearing your skin would be covered in this sensor. And because it can read further out, you'd almost get a awareness of further around you, which would allow you to react in, well, that's usually depicted as in a combat situation or
Mhm.
things like that. And there is combat technologies that are being developed by DoD and DARPA to further capabilities of like the 21st century warrior and soldier and things like that. But this would allow you additional capabilities, extend your sensory range, provide you more information that would then feed back into whatever this idea of this like direct neural interface, right?
Mhm.
And that's a common trope in cyberpunk, is that you'd have this thing, this central processor essentially, that would process all of the incoming information and then translate it directly to your brain,
Mhm.
and that would provide you that near instant response. In certain examples like Ghost in the Shell, they showed that you'd have this camouflage capability, right?
Mm.
Because once you can manipulate the sensors that you're on this extra layer of skin, who's to say you can't bend light around it? And there's a lot of moving forward in the invisibility cloak technologies and things like that. So anything that you would wear, incorporate, anything that deals with those various information sources, light, radio, magnetic, all of those kinds of fields, you could theoretically be able to manipulate and inform yourself in one way or another. And so the I think the path of the technology is first to, and this is what most of these interface type of technologies do, is they'll start to fill in the gap for those below norm. I hate to use this term, but like the standardized level of sensory perception,
Mhm.
and then from there you extend that sensory perception for additional capabilities and those kinds of things.
So that would be seen as an accommodation, kind of to get you back to um, uh, the way the majority of the world experiences things, which is not the same. But yes, and then you could conceivably add on to that for an additional ability.
Yeah.
So my question is, well, first of all, when you said camouflage, I was like, holy crap, we can be chameleons or like octopi? Because yes, for being able to like,
But you have
That's
to be
probably the early versions will be, color matching and pattern matching, but eventually I would imagine that it's full light manipulation
yes,
in,
around the
in
body.
regular light
that
though,
would make more
it'll
sense.
appear that you're naked.
No, it will just appear that I am this, right?
Right, right.
That I am the thing that is behind me. I am just a chair in front of a screen. Okay, so the next question that I have is, um, we are talking about light and we're talking about magnetism, but it doesn't seem like we're talking about um temperature, but or like impact, although the haptic is a little bit of impact, right?
Mhm.
But is this something that would be used, like if we move further into the game environment, where if a fireball comes flying by me, am I feeling something as it goes by me on my skin with heat and
Yeah.
Well,
I
I was thinking about this idea of how do you translate some array of skin mounted, this exophasia idea, like put on as a zoot suit, and it's very thin, but it amplifies, my sensory capabilities to include spectra that I don't normally have human senses for.
Mhm,
And one of them is, standoff infrared. Like we can feel infrared if it's intense and it's on our face, like the sun rays. But infrared, like in infrared vision, or let's take night vision goggles that are looking at white phosphor as the method of showing what the infrared radiation is out there, and it can give you a different field of view. That's a different term actually about how wide the visible range is, but um, I was just thinking about this idea. It's very akin to what you said, Beth, about having a fireball fly by. And so let's suppose that I'm not looking in that direction, but the fireball flies behind me. Well, this skin might be designed to give me an enhanced representation of the infrared signature of that thing flying by. So I'd feel a hot flash on my body that would never exceed, my tolerance, but I would definitely get a warning and I'd turn around and see what it was. And I like the idea of having something that, we like to think of ourselves as having eyes in the back of our head. Well, this kind of magnetic sensor could produce something, not exactly like vision, but it could deliver something that's sensory to you
mhm,
that would represent a wide range of different things, including at the other end of the spectrum from infrared, like too much ultraviolet or even too much high gamma radiation, for example, in an environment. And then I just wanted to end by saying we were talking about the combat applications of a skin suit
mhm.
that has additional capabilities. Of course, you want it to be armored in some degree, like it's got a Kevlar layer or whatever. In addition, you'd want it to have self-healing properties. So if you actually got a wound, it would reconnect itself and apply pressure, right? Those are the science fiction applications of it. But I want to think about, and I'll tell you why. I want to think about the non-combat applications of this kind of thing, because eventually, I'm told by my military friends that there are not going to be a lot of human warriors on the battlefield. It's going to be all done with autonomous things out there, including drones. They're flying, and then drones on the ground, and all of that. And there'll be people who are staying out of harm's way in order to marshal and coordinate the actual action, using mostly drones. So now think about burn victims. Can this kind of thing assist in the recovery? Not maybe not like a skin graft actually produce a sort of a permanent biological layer, but could it replace the need for skin grafts to some degree by having a very sort of hybrid biological and fabric interface that you basically, if you've suffered severe burns on a certain part of your body, or in many cases, people die as a result of exceeding the percentage of your skin, the largest organ of your body, with a lot of functions that are required. This replacement suit could be applied, right after the injury, the burn injury, and it would support the healing, but it would also be kind of a permanent integration with your skin that then replaces what your original organ was, but fulfills most of the functions of that skin organ.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've heard of a concept called smart bandages before, and basically it's the application of where you could put a bandage, a slap patch, or something over a wound, and it would contain all of the medical technology, whether that be chemical or a biologic agent, or nanomachines, or anything that facilitates rapid regeneration, antiseptic properties, all those kinds of things. And I think in the medical field, it's probably a good idea to highlight where we can get the most and quickest applications of these technologies. I saw a video of someone demonstrating an automated defibrillator uh, to so that it becomes a no-brainer. It just becomes so easy to use, anybody could use it, right? It's the whole concept behind CPR and why it was created was so that here is a simple set of procedures that you can go through that is fairly easy to learn, so that everyone can know first aid, everyone can know CPR and things like that. um, to help save lives, right? And so, like, even with this automated defibrillator, it was guiding the person. It's like, all right, it's on, place here and here, has a screen, shows you the places where on the abdomen to put it, and then it says ready to go, and then charges, and then it's like, hit this button, okay, boom, all right, is it reading a pulse, or any of those kinds of things. And so that's a real world application of a program system, or could even be an AI system. I'd have to go back and watch it, but um, it dumbs it down, right? If we can get basic emergency medicine and devices dumbed down enough so that everyone can just simply oh, let me help them. I have it. It's a feature in my new phone,
Right.
that kind of thing. Um, so when it comes to having these e-skins, smart bandages, anything that along the medical side of things, I can imagine that there just be um, a sealed pack that you open up and you slap the patch on there, and it'll close the wound. It'll apply your antibacterial, your antiseptic, all of those kinds of things up to a certain category. Then the kind of things that you're talking about, Andy, where you can wrap a person up. Let's say they took a serious trauma. You could wrap a person up, and as part of the natural process of the bandage or the e-skin layer, it would be absorbed into the body as it's forming, it's closing the wounds and things like that. I think for examples that I've seen before, the organ replacements are a little further down the line, but all of that kind of thinking is certainly plausible, especially if we start introducing technologies like nanomachines and nanofabricators.
So I've got a
So,
little factoid here, which is that burn victims with large skin grafts who have recovered from their burns, they suffer permanent deficits in touch and temperature perception in those grafts. So large areas of the body can be numb to any kind of sensation. And the question is, can we develop a technology over time that is like this advanced bandage that not only serves most of the functions of the skin, but also reconnects to the nerve networks underneath the skin that aren't damaged in some way, like a neural implant would be, so long as that layer that houses the tail ends of the nerves hasn't been completely destroyed in the injury.
Right. I guess it's how much trauma, but I imagine that's where you would get the idea of you'd have sprays, right? You'd spray the area, it would create or replace the skin and grow or reconnect those nerve endings as all part of the process. But yeah, what were you saying, Beth?
So one of the things that I was thinking with this is the concept of biofeedback, right?
Mhm.
That we are able to, when we have a sensor that can show us like our heart rate, our skin response, right? There are interfaces that you can engage with, that you can start to learn to control some of the functions that you have. Slow down your breathing, slow down your heart rate, right? Increase heat, decrease heat. And I wonder about this in terms of being able to use the e-skin as a way to have like a massive biofeedback, and if there is an option to then strengthen those muscles beyond what is regular. So I am thinking, certainly the idea of being able to potentially, I don't know, uh imagine that your nerve is attaching, or those sorts of things. Like, is there some visualization aspect that can happen in that is going to retrain your brain to sense something, right? But also, what are the impacts or possibilities of being able to, in with an intention in some way that has some biological response, is there an ability to increase the magnetic field and decrease the magnetic field? Would that at some point become something that we could control ourselves?
Yeah. And I think that's what kind of I mean by awareness,
Mhm.
right? So anyone who has done some dedicated training, whether that be through meditation or martial arts or just mindfulness, there's multiple paths to all the same thing. Your awareness increases, whether that be through accessing or focusing your existing sensors, hearing, sight, smell, right? um, but one of the reasons why people tend to be able to move within their living area really quickly is because they naturally know where the things are over time. It's not just memorization, it's and so the magnetic field of a human being is very, very low, right? It's not, you usually are not going to touch the side of your old CRT and cause it to go wonky, or electronics or anything like that. But um, it's that kind of aspect. Once you tap into those kinds of capabilities, you should be able to increase your awareness further out, right? And this is the idea behind it. This is all the science fiction realm of things, is where if you have some sort of sensor, you can improve the sensor or increase the sensor, or um, add to it to become near extrasensory, right?
Right.
ESP, right? Extrasensory perception. It expands beyond that. It's just like when we talk about cyberware for replacing different parts of our bodies. So, like eyeballs, right? If we can replace our eyeballs with super high res camera who can read, we can go like get predator vision, where we can shift through the various light spectrums and be like, there's a thermal. Okay, there's my pet. It's hiding in the laundry basket, or those kinds of things.
So,
um
just to say, I know people often wonder what it's like after the shows for us, after we get done with our stuff. This was a conversation that we had. I agree with Jumi that if it's possible to replace my eyeballs with really good next ones, I yeah,
yeah
I'm interested.
yeah I like to lean towards first just biological replacements based off of my own biology. So like if I could just get my eyeballs but vat grown from my own DNA, fantastic. Low chance of organ, what was it gonna not for refusal, what's the word I'm
Rejection.
looking, rejection, that's the word, right? So that grown all your own pieces and just start replacing it. It's like the Odysseus boat. Right, keep on replacing pieces, and how much of your body already goes through a flush every 7 years anyways. But but yeah, that would be the ideal. Then biotech beyond that, right? Where it's like, oh, now it's improved, so I will never need glasses anymore. I can just have superior vision because that's the way they'll be grown. And then beyond that is, oh, okay, well, I have to have actual hardware put in. All right, cool. I want to be able to. I want Hubble telescope vision in my brain, or I guess JWST vision, or I can have microscope vision, thermal vision, UV. I mean, jam it all in there, as long as it looks like normal eyeballs. I'm just saying. I mean, we can keep going down. We can keep going down until we get to a point where there might be a few paths of immortality where there's oh, you've replaced everything but your brain with a cybernetic replacement or a vat grown. If you've ever seen a show called Altered Carbon, that's kind of what they do. They call them sleeves. Essentially, they vat grow a whole clone body for you, and then stick your memory engrams in there, and you theoretically live forever. I don't know. Andy, if you had the opportunity to replace your, crude matter and just live forever, would you choose to do so?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No question about it. I love the idea that Ray Kurzweil put forward many years ago now of the emerging medical technology that would replace the heart and the circulation system uh, powered by the heart with nanobot hemoglobin replacements. So
Right.
that could carry more oxygen than a hemoglobin cell can and are self motivating. So they go where they're needed and know how to communicate with each other and figure out the best distribution of oxygen for your tissues. So, many people die of heart disease. Most people, frankly, die of heart disease, cancer being the second one. But the final end game of life is, the heart, which is a muscle, finally gives out and you die.
Yeah.
Well, what if you could, with a simple transfusion, terminate the heart from pumping anymore, seal it off, even remove the heart, but you're filled up with this self-motivating nanoblood, and
Right.
you don't have to worry about your heart ever failing in the future. I would sign up for that, absolutely. In answer to your question, and even as extreme as that sounds, I think that would be a really important improvement to the fragility, to overcome the fragility of the human corpus.
Okay. Yeah. From Jen. Okay, I love you all, but this is freaky AF. And there is that point, and I'm gonna see if we can open up another deeper, darker door. So Jen, if you need to put on some earplugs or something, that's all right. Um, the idea behind this is okay. So if we have a magnetic field that we can engage, put on, is installed within us, and we can control things outside of our bodies and control things inside our bodies, does that open up an opportunity to be hacked? If we are the remote control, who is the user?
Yeah. Okay. Well, some examples that I've seen in various science fiction. Ghost in the Shell is one of them. Blade Runner kind of touches upon this a little bit. Um, Lots of William Gibson books, Neuromancer, some Bruce Sterling stuff. They talk about this, and this is usually talked about in cyberpunk genre or subgenre of science fiction, mainly because it's a dystopian culture, and so you've got really cool technologies that solve all kinds of problems, and by doing so create a whole bunch of problems, those kinds of things. It's supposed to be a warning, everyone. Cyberpunk 2077 is a warning. It's not supposed to be a blueprint, just like other stories. All right. So so the idea is, the more access you have to networks, that means that's more points of entry into your network. So let's look at everything we've talked about, right? eSkin as a controller, eSkin's an interface, that's a platform, that's a network, right? Just like when we talk about cyberware and things like that, anything that's a direct neural interface, that's a network. Now, a lot of these will be closed. Like, you will need to be close enough and usually have some sort of contact to be able to start your intrusion, right? And I'm sure that's going to be a mitigating factor. Of course, security as a whole will be something that you will need to update and keep constantly abreast of and on top of, for sure, just like with networks now. There is going to be a lot of security through obscurity kind of things. But usually, like I said, it does require some close proximity. Now, when you open yourself up to updates from the rest of the world, aka some form of Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, if you have that installed, if you have a wireless connection capability, that is totally a point of attack. And so I guess the way to look at it is, it's going to be that constant battle of staying updated and staying aware. And, you put on your blockers, they find a way through it. They try to attack you, you create a new wall, and it'll be just constant, mad, right? And just keep on going up and up and up forever and ever. But I think that's going to be a fact of life for technology. The more interconnected you're going to be, the more opportunity there is for that to be trying to take advantage of. So it's that constant question of, do we want, is the risk, can we mitigate the risk for a greater reward? And once they crack that on at least a general scale, you'll see a far larger adoption.
Or just the more and more amplification of our senses, taxes the brain's ability to tune out the things that it doesn't want to attend to. And it could just be overwhelming for the human brain, too distracting to have all the alerts and indications that are coming from this amplification of, various senses, whether it's eyes or, like, what if your eyes, you can't shut them just by closing your eyelids, right? They're still sensing even through your eyelids, which is an interesting application, right? I can pretend to be asleep, but I'm still watching you. That's a cool science fiction story right there.
Or creepy. Yep.
Yeah, it's creepy. Jen, I apologize. Anytime you see somebody with their eyes closed, they could be listening, but they're not watching you yet. No.
So what I'm sort of wondering here now is there going to be an agent that is associated with your eSkin, right? So are you able to, I'm going to go to sleep. The agent has now like I've switched on agent mode, which means my agent is now receiving all of the sensory information or the information that's coming through those things. And then I get to go to sleep. And when I wake up, my agent, who is, I don't know, my skin, my whatever, wherever the agent is, then gives me a rundown of what has occurred while I have not been sensorially aware. Is that a word?
Yeah.
I like
Well,
it.
I get what you're
I
meaning.
got it.
Yeah, I can see that way of it playing out. I think it is easier to implement a cutoff switch and keep the agent external, right? If it's probably easier to, like, when you go into sleep mode, you can put on do not disturb, you can put on airplane mode on your phone, same kind of thing, right? Your DNI, your direct neural interface, your DNI, is good, that I believe they're going to try and develop to be as naturally and as instantaneously functioning as possible. So it's not an, I wouldn't call it an AI necessarily in the sense of I'm going to have a conversation with it. That's not to say there can't be, our interface forms, right? Right now we use a phone or a computer. That's definitely going to evolve into some other thing, especially for its compute power, right? We're going to want to have some piece of hardware that is separate, that allows us to do some stuff. And we might allow that compute power device to integrate with our own personal networks. But I think it's probably more secure to just build in cutoff switches where your thought goes, turn all that off, shut it all off. I don't want any extra input. Boom, turns it off. You go to sleep. You wake up. All right, cool. Let's turn it back on. More advanced versions, I'm sure there'll be tiered systems. More advanced versions might have a subroutine that it's aware of the sensor, like you're talking about, where it then is under instruction to wake you up if there's imminent danger or something along those lines. But I think the development is probably going to go along the lines of here's hard switches. It's just like nope, off, and then on. And then as it becomes more and more advanced, then you get more of your AI interface. It's like do this for these kinds of situations, turn on after so many minutes, and all those kinds of stuff. And especially if you leave the connection on between your other devices for your personal network.
I mean, I could conceivably get kind of excited about pajamas that like instantly relax a leg cramp, right? Like, ooh, that's happening. Yep. And now we have heat. We have like whatever is needed there. There's pressure at a particular place. There's those kinds of things like that. That could be kind of interesting. Um, Jude actually said early on, this sounds like something that it would be hard to get into and take off. And I am curious about would there be a corresponding like innovation with this that would allow cells to expand, right? So that the or whatever it is, the particles that create this would be able to get wider so that you could slip it on and then get closer together.
Well, I mean, I can visualize what you're talking about, and that's more along the haptic suit line of technologies, where you just want it to be a little more maneuverable and manipulatable and things like that. But when we're talking about like the source of what the e-skin, that's something that you can wear all the time.
So you just
It's just, think of it thinner than the thinnest sticker you've ever put on your skin. Think of it like temporary tattoos. You apply it, and then there's that thin layer of ink and whatnot. Would be more akin to that, but of course far more resilient.
Yeah.
But the idea is that you just wouldn't have to ever remove it, or just to replace it. and it could just be built to where it only lasts for so many weeks or so many months and has to be replaced. You know, it.
Okay, you are you are gonna need to explain this to me. Maybe it's like the black slime that takes over Soldier Man. Is that what that is?
Oh, I think he's talking Spider-Man.
Spider Man. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
So there's the symbiont from the Spider-Man comics, off now known as Venom, right? And that creature is a symbiotic creature that covers Spider-Man and has its own capabilities, increased abilities across the board, strength, agility, uh, the webbing, all of those kinds of things. Oh, okay. Uh, so,
Man. Yep.
We're back.
The powers that be do not want us to be talking about the technology
right, there
of
you go.
Spider-Man.
Yeah. Um, I guess the symbiont, or the idea of the symbiote, and that idea from Spider-Man would be like the idealized form of the haptic suit line of things, right? Because you could theoretically give the command, right? Because it would still have its own interface to have it extract and then form into a ball of tar that you could put in a little box or whatever. And then when it came time, you'd open the box and then you'd hold it and then you'd give it the mental command and then it would expand over you. Um, that that's a little more along the lines of like the concept of nano machines or nano clusters, where they can be programmed, or they could have their own AI to function a certain way, reform their smart material. It could just be it could be a ball of goo, which are all just nano machines that would expand and occupy the space and interface as it needs. I think that's a little further down the line, but we are talking about the concept of nanofabricators coming to line, where it literally just takes the atoms that exist in the world around us, the earth, the water, the air, and reform those into more useful atoms to form molecules. And once you can create a molecule chain, you can pretty much create anything that isn't some sort of exotic material. And that's the birth of the replicator. I know every conversation we have on this show always goes back to the replicator, but I mean, well, because it would solve so many problems. I'm just saying, you know. And the idea was like, oh, who would have these nanofabricators? Everyone. Why? Because the first job of a nanofabricator is to make another one.
Yes.
And it becomes exponential. And then, yeah, you can have 8, 10, 12 billion of them in like a week. So, you know, and they self-power themselves. They can make anything that you want. Oh, look at that. We have as much of everything and anything that we want at any point in time instantaneously, and no one has to pay for it. Oh, okay. Yay, world problem solved. All right. But back to Eskin.
So I have a question about Iron Man's suit, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking that would be like a super intense version of like the chameleon or the octopi defense,
suit,
right?
that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So it's not just that it's camouflagey or extrasensory, but now it is also defensive, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it really comes down to the ideas are the things that you want to achieve, right? We had originally talked about sensors being able to provide more information, you know, more awareness. Then comes down to what are other functions. We talked about the medical applications. So if we had an e-skin or a suit along those lines that could provide whatever chemical and biological agents that would promote suturing and antiseptic and cleaning, you know, and reforming skin and those kinds of things. Now, if we're talking about like Iron Man suit at that point, it's almost a factory in and of itself. It's in the shape of a person so that you could wear it easier, but it has all of these additional functions because of the the amount of surface area, the amount of space, both computationally and the fabrication in of itself, and its energy source, right? So now the whole idea of the Iron Man suit is, oh, here's the perfect container that's human shaped that can provide everything that you want. It's the walking tank, it's your car slash airplane, it's your food synthesizer, it handles all of your natural functions. You can live anywhere because you're in a nice air conditioned environment. It can draw the moisture molecules from the atmosphere, collect it, and act like provide you with water and all of those kinds of things. So these become more systems. So I would look more at the Iron Man suit as less a development or addition from the path of E-skin and more of a manipulation or a development of enclosed systems.
All
All
right.
I want to shift to a really important question, and that is, why do we need shoes? Why our skin, if you don't wear shoes, your skin will callus quite significantly on the soles of your feet and the palms of your hands, to the point where you don't need shoes. You can walk on almost anything. By the way, I have, among other things, I've actually done the Tony Robbins walk on fire thing, which is, not that difficult at all. It doesn't require a whole lot of, mental preparation. It's just you're walking on ashes. And if you move swiftly enough, you're stepping on ashes, and they're insulating you from the coals underneath. So anyway,
there's also that thermal delay as well. So why you don't instantly burn your hand when you touch a hot pan is because there's a delay before it actually affects you.
The delay is potentially overcome by the fact that this is at least 20 yards long.
Right? Oh, for sure. Yeah.
It's not like you step twice and you're out of the deal. You have to go across 20 yards of coals.
Right.
But anyway, I digress. What I wanted to say is I'm a real tenderfoot, but I would really like to have, because, there's some evidence that, grounding yourself against the earth has some, important physiological benefits. And I don't sense those things, because when I go up and take my shoes off and try to walk across the ground, just even the smallest variations, a little pebble under there is really making me go, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. So I'm really a tenderfoot. I would like to have calluses, but why can't I put something on there, like a little patch that's going to trigger my skin to grow thick calluses under my feet so that I can walk barefoot again?
Oh, okay. So now you're going into the realm of this is more of the biohacking, right? It's less the e-skin, less an e-skin and more of the capabilities of being able to cause instant reaction through your natural body processes. Now, humans in general,
if I could grow it over the course of 10 days and be prepared to go on a camping trip where my shoes get
well, that in the scheme of things, 10 days is instant, right? So humans, most people, because they are people, they don't understand that most of the times humans' healing factor is incredible compared to a lot of other animals and things like that. We heal from the craziest wounds, and we can lose limbs and live, right? And that's a combination of our own biology and our technology, which some would argue is just an extension of our own biology, but I won't go into that part. But yeah, that it would be interesting to have something that would be like triggering that DNA response that says, okay, start growing calluses as quickly as possible. Right. So the reason why we wear shoes is, well, nowadays it's probably fashion, but it's because our lives no longer require our feet our bare feet to be in contact and used in such a way where those calluses would naturally grow, right? And we would need to and we have our need to travel further. So how are we going to protect our feet from where we live in one environment and go to another environment? We have to figure out a way to protect ourselves. So, but I really like that idea where we could stimulate the natural biological processes of ourselves to just do what it does naturally, just but do it faster. The the big
including
question about that is make sure it doesn't, because that's the way cancer works too.
Right.
So we got to be careful with that one. But yes.
So, so for this, I feel like like this almost seems for me, what could we roll back to a time when something was more fluid, more possible, right? So if all of the moments of time are happening simultaneously, would
Mhm.
it be possible to roll back to when I was a kid, right? Obviously, I would need it to work for bigger feet, but let's just go with that. It's a time when I was a kid, but I had basically the same size feet. And I lived on Martha's Vineyard, and I went barefoot from June until September. So
Mm.
in Massachusetts. So I went through cold, hard, boiling asphalt, tar, and sun, right? And by the end of that, my feet were indestructible, right? Like I could no
Mhm.
longer feel the difference between a really hot pavement and the ice cold ocean, because that didn't really ever warm up in Massachusetts while we were swimming in it. But that, like, how could that be? And that sort of goes back to the idea of, can you reset your something that isn't functioning correctly in the Star Trek,
Mhm.
right? Can you go back? Can it build on a map before you had that thing? I do know we've talked about that, so we may talk about that again. But I'm curious, like, could we roll back a certain part of our physique or our body to a place where it was in a more desirable state, more
So
functional state?
so that reminds me of two examples. So number one, when you brought up the idea of, you know, time is all happening all at once, and if we have the ability to pick out the moment and draw from that the information that we want from that moment, yes. Now I think that's a little further on because we are corporeal temporal creatures. We'd have to do some serious work to be able to do that. But the other one is, if you've ever seen the read the manga or saw the anime called Akira. Came out in the 80s. Fantastic example of both the cyberpunk subgenre and anime and science fiction in general. But their premise and what their mad scientists were working on was able to unlock the uh, the genetic the idea of genetic memory, right? So
Mhm.
as we evolve, our experiences, that all has the environment, it all has an effect on our body, our biology. And the idea is that through evolution you could pull out or potentially pull out those evolutionary jumps or those evolutionary changes. So
Mhm.
if we all shared a common ancestor, from that common ancestor all the way to us, there may be aspects of this, like when people talk about their lizard brain or their reptilian brain and those kinds of things. This is kind of touching upon that. So if we could tap into our genetic memory, or even our localized genetic memory, maybe not as a species or our background, uh, and remember our time, like you're saying, a point in which our bodies were at a different point, then that does bring up the idea of where is our idealized point? Was there at any point, did you reach, I mean, they're talking about like peak, depending on your physiology, what your peak example of you have become a human adult, is that your peak example? Can you reset back to that? Does your body remember what that was? Because right now we do have that timer, right? It's built into us where everything will degrade over time. We do have our own processes where we filter out our cells every 7 years, so we're technically a new person, right? Or our body is, those kinds of things. So if we explore that, perhaps we can convince our body, oh, we need to go back to our ideal form, our peak performing form. And if you can tell your body, oh, reset that clock. No, minus 30 years, minus 60 years. And then everything is rebuilt at that spec, then that's another line of immortality. Because if you just can always reset yourself every 10 years, and all it just requires is a shot to go, okay, send the nanobot, bleep, yeah, reset the counter, and then you could perpetually stay in that healthy state. So that's kind
Yeah.
of where that goes.
Then
Yeah.
then we get overcrowded really quickly if nobody dies anymore, right? Like there is a little
That's
bit
why
of
we must go forth and occupy all the celestial bodies in the sky, just so that we can see if anyone else did it too. Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay, we're just about over time now. So I wanted to end with something interesting that I saw on I forget what the channel was, but my wife and I last night were watching a show about amazing capabilities of the animal kingdom, and one of them is a small fish that needs to relocate itself to another place that's not as crowded as where it is hatched. Right, so this little fingerling, it's just a few inches long, has the ability to be outside of the water for up to, I think it was 50 hours. And the
Wow.
way it does that, and it also has this incredible capability of using its eyes to figure out what direction it needs to go in order to pursue the water upstream to kind of find another small place in order to create its own habitat away from the original brood, shall we say. And it has the ability to jump using its tail. It can throw itself 15 times its body length. And so it does that repeatedly until it finds its way to a new location. The way it manages being out of the water for up to 50 hours is that the blood vessels in the tail region expand and actually are at the edge, that you can visually see the red blood in the tail section, but only when it's in this mode where it's out of the water and flying its way or jumping its way to a new location. So oxygen can translate from the air into the creature just by being at the surface of the skin somehow, like with some other changes, I'm sure, in the biology of that fish. So its gills can no longer operate to provide oxygenation of the blood, but it manages this duration, a very significant duration, without gill operation by having the vessels in the tail expose blood to the air.
All right.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Now
Let's unlock that capability. Do we have a shared ancestor? Is it locked in our DNA somewhere? Someone figure out how to turn that sequence on. There you
hey,
go.
I very much want the e-skin that just lets me do photosynthesis so that I don't need to worry
Ooh,
about
yeah.
food anymore. Like let's
Yep.
just
Yep.
yep. I was convinced when I was a kid, like they're gonna figure out food. Why do we have to eat the food? I mean, come on. Anyway, thank you so much, Junmi. Thank you, Andy. Thank you to everyone who has been a part of our show today in the chat: Gareth, Jude, Jen, and Jeff. And anybody else who didn't get a chance to join in and say something, we really appreciate you. We are doing these every Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. If there is a topic you would that you would like us to talk about, please let us know. And I realized I didn't switch us to the to the Sci-Fi AI Show overlay. But I am going to say, if you want to join us in our daily AI show community.com, that is the link that goes to our Slack, and we are having more of these conversations every day, every week. And we hope you join us and enjoy. Have your yeah. I don't know. I hope your skin feels magnetically wonderful after this conversation, and that you are not too influenced by Big Shoe, so that you can go walk on the grass and ground yourself. And I hear you, Andy. I am also tender footed. So, all right. Thanks,
Have a great
everybody.
weekend, everyone. Aloha.